it as well too. Okay. We are live for those that are friends with the Dr. Sequana page. You can share it from there. And if not, you can absolutely share from the Taylor Legacies page because it's just an open business page. Mm. Okay, and now give us a couple more seconds. Were you all able to find it? Yes. Are you all able to hear me? All right, Serena, I can see yours good. Marika, are you able to hear me? If yes, wave. Oh, Serena. All right. So, Dr. Shonda, Marika, Serena, Shauna, Mike, are you guys able to hear me? This must going to be a juicy show. I literally just got off a meeting for 2 hours and no internet issues. I can't believe this. No one. We all do it together. Oh my god. It's not playing any of the videos. right? This must go be a dynamic show, right? Because technology has kicked me out 3 times and I'm the host. So I have no idea how that works. We're going to keep it going. It took like 2 tries for my countdown video to try, and then I think it just erased all of the other ones. But we're gonna go. So when something like that happen, I just say that means it has to be very impactful of what we're going to talk about and what's going to happen. Thank you all for joining us for the Taylor Talk Show. This month's topic is the missing chapter, the absence of a mother, and any effects of trauma that it may bring, as well as the healing journey, right? And so I have some heavy heaters on the show. That's why it just can hold all of y'all power. That's what I'm gonna blame it on, not the internet. It can hold all of the power that's on this page right now. Y'all don't, the videos are gone. I'm gonna have to figure out how we go to commercials, but we go keep it going. And so very honored and humble for you all to join me today. And we'll do it just pop-up style. If you can tell us who you are, what organization, or via if it's not an organization, what do you do in life, and one of the reasons that you accepted the call to come on the show today. And in no particular order, unless you guys want me to call you out.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marika Rogers. I am a licensed professional counselor. My agency name is Rogers Counseling Consulting Firm, and I decided to accept this opportunity because I myself am a mother, and I know the importance of motherhood. So I'm happy to be here, and I look forward to having this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Marika. Who's next? Who's next?
Hi, I'm Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith. I'm an internal medicine physician and the founding physician and CEO at Restorasis. And I accepted this invitation because my mother died soon after childbirth, and I've been navigating that journey, and it played a big part in who I grew up to be.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Sandra. Who's next? Who's next?
I'll step up to the mic. Good evening, everybody. I'm Shauna Weatherspoon with Raising Our Daughters Foundation. I'm the president and founder of the organization that is built to develop women and girls around the planet to become the best version of themselves. I stepped up to the calling because I know firsthand what it's like to navigate through your entire life without your mom. I lost my mom at 14 years old. And very honestly and very transparently, I am just now starting to heal within the last year. So I hope that I can help and be a good voice for somebody.
Thank you. Thank you. Who's next?
Good evening. I'll go. Mike's being a gentleman with ladies first. We appreciate you. My name is Serena Martin. I am executive director and founder of Mahogany Cares Foundation, Inc. I joined this call because I am an adult child of adoption. I have a unique situation. I can't say that I was motherless. I was raised by someone who was not DNA mother. I have 2 beautiful moms now. I actually met my birth mother at age 38. So it's just a story that I'm finding is more common than I thought. I was alone and I thought I was the only one in the world. But as you grow and heal, as Shauna was talking about, that healing is everything. So I'm hoping that we can reach some people this evening.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Serena. And last but absolutely not least.
Yes, thank you. My name is Mike Rodriguez. I'm a Maxwell Leadership Certified Trainer and Speaker. But today I'm not really representing that necessarily. I'm representing the fact that I'm a son, I'm a father, and a husband. And so my story is unique in the sense that, typically we hear of fathers leaving the household at a certain point. But in my case, it was my mom who actually left the household when I was around 5 years old. And so I did grow up with her in my life, but it was more of a every other weekend visiting with her, and kind of like an interesting dynamic of the relationship. Many times I felt like the parent rather than the actual child in those situations. And so to add on that and speak to that a little bit, there were moments of healing. And really the reason why I took this up and the opportunity to come, well, one is probably one of the few men that would probably take on this call, because it's a difficult situation. Absolutely. as a man or boy growing up without your mom. But on top of that, I just do want to speak to the healing effect and really empathy and kind of seeing the other side of the story. as it relates to our moms and some of the things that they may have faced, especially if your mom did leave. And so I wanted to be able to encourage people into that. So that's why I'm here today. So thank you so much for the offer.
Thank you. Thank you. And we'll jump right into it and then I'll come back with the commercial. I got to bring it up. It's a heavy topic, right? When you think about a mother, they say that a mother's love covers all. And not having that mother there with you, you guys all talked about either she was there but really not in your life, or some lost her immediately when they came up, or meeting her at 38. Like you missed prom, right? My first tears, to catch and cry. And so how did you deal with that as a child, right? Let alone an adult, because times I still call my mom, but as a child, how was it for you to grow up and maybe no mothers were muffins, like your biological mom? What were some of the times, or maybe the first time that you remembered that your mom wasn't there, that you really needed her or wanted her to be there? And in no particular order. Or I'll call Serena.
Dr. Sandra she's
I'm
muted.
sorry, I was speaking to myself because I had it muted. But as someone who grew up never having opportunity to even meet my mother, I would say there wasn't a time that I didn't miss her. From you're walking into, I can remember it all the way back to in grade school when they have those little breakfasts and everybody has their parents come, and just about everyone around me had two people sitting with them. And if they didn't have two, it was their mom and them. So it was just a very unusual situation at the time. That probably stuck out to me the most were those big female moments, the birth of my own children, the getting married, prom, all of those big moments when you kind of expect to have that kind of closeness of that relationship. So I got to admit, I grew up an angry child. I grew up angry at God and the world, and everything's unfair. And, especially I grew up in a religious home where they were like, oh, well, God loved your mother more. It's like, well, what kind of God is that? So to take a mother from a child. So just a lot of anger is where my journey started.
Wow. And we gonna get back to that, like that religious factor of it, or being angry as well. Anyone else want to speak on the first time that you ever noticed or really wanted your mom to be there?
So I was just looking at all of our reactions, and everybody's doing their head like this because it's honestly, I think for most people in that situation, it's all the time. It's all the time, whether you even realize it or not. All the time. And honestly, some of my biggest moments are my mom's been gone well over 30 years and I need her more today than I ever needed her. So it could, for me, I mean, I think the one really big, I didn't realize I was holding any resentment towards my mother until I was well into my 30s. I really didn't understand it. I just didn't think that was me. But then I learned, the more I learned about it, that comes with the territory, and you have to deal with that and learn how to overcome that. But I can remember a girlfriend called. It took a life event of somebody close to me, because the mistake I kept making, and I still work on it honestly today, I kept looking to other people, like older women who I looked at as a motherly figure, whether that be in business or my personal relationship, to fill that void. And I kept finding that void wasn't getting filled no way, no how, by nobody, and nothing. It didn't matter what I did. I couldn't feel it. Right. A very close friend of my family's, her mother died of cancer. And I watched this woman fight so hard to live. And the minute that she died, it hit me. And that's when I became the most resentful, because I felt like my mother didn't fight at all to live. And I was well into my 30s when that happened. And I was 14 when my mom died. So.
Wow. Searching for a mom. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Who else would like to share?
I was going to say, I think for me, part of that aspect of not having her in the household and not living with my mom was this idea of just the nurturing aspect that moms give, right? And I think, just the kissing the boo-boo, right? Because she wasn't present. She wasn't there to, like, when you hurt yourself or things of that sort, or when they're, asking the questions relative to like girls and things of that sort. And, I think what moms a lot of times they do is they help build your confidence, at least for a boy, right? For a young man, they help build your confidence towards the opposite sex. And so I think that was lacking. And I remember vividly a moment, I can't remember how old I was. And I grew up with my dad and my extended family. So my dad and my family is stereotypical Mexican family. We all live together, aunts, uncles, and everything in the same kind of building complex. And he tried to do his best. He said, you know what? I'll have my mom raise you and help raise you. And Shauna, you said it very clearly. As much as my grandmother was a phenomenal woman, an incredible woman, she still didn't fill that void that existed. And I remember my dad telling me at one point, he said, son, I love you, but I don't have a nipple for you to suck on. Basically, he basically was, not those exact words, but he was basically telling me, listen, son, I can't nurture you. I'm not going to be able to do that for you. So those are the vivid things, just the lack of nurturing, and that absolutely impacted my life and how I acted and portrayed myself throughout my young adulthood and even now, obviously. So.
Absolutely. And you know, just hearing some of those, you can still hear it. Like it speaks through. Like I heard some of you say, even at age 30, right? Or Dr. Sandra said, I was angry, right? And growing up religious, they say, well, God knows best, right? Like God doesn't make mistakes. And you sitting here saying, but I'm the person without a mother, right? And so if we can go back and just touch on that, because I think about there may have been times when a person said something like that, like God knew best, right? And Dr. Sandra, you're saying, but I'm angry. Like that doesn't help me in this time that I'm searching, and probably for all of you, that I'm searching and hoping and wanting my mom, and it didn't go away. You know how they say sometimes, and people say it, and I've been told to not say this. I was with a bunch of mothers who lost their children, and so many people said, for those who mother passed, I'm sorry for your loss. And one of the mothers said, I'm sorry too. Right. And it did something to me because we've been taught to say that to people. And she said, I don't really mean any harm, but I'm sorry for my loss too. Right. And so it's not like I don't take it. People are caring, you know, but I'm the one that lost something. And so coming from someone who says your mom passed in childbirth, right. And I could just imagine some of the things that went through your head as, wow, my life, you know, like me coming into life was a celebration, but the life of my mom was taken then, right? And so did you go to therapy or anything, Dr. Sandra, you know, or did they just say gotta heal, right? Like, could you elaborate a little bit about growing up and being angry, but being in that religious zone as well, too?
No, I didn't
And
go to
anybody
therapy.
else can chime in.
I just cuss God out daily is how I dealt with it as a teenager. It was years. It was probably well into my 20s before I even wanted to start dealing with it. I just kind of honestly, the pain was so deep, I didn't even want to deal with it. It hurt too much to even deal with it. So it was like, I'm just not going to deal with it. I'm just going to keep my head to the grind and focus on getting this medical degree. And honestly, I think I became a doctor after self-reflection and working with therapists and pastors and all kind of people to try to get my head zone straight. Honestly, I became a doctor because I wanted to find out where the other doctors screwed up in that hospital that ended up with my mother not leaving with me. And so there was so much intermixed within how I viewed life and death and how I viewed the medical profession that it really just kind of formulated everything around my life. And so it was well into my 20s after going through medical school, after doing parts of residency and actually getting to the point of medical school where I'm in the birthing room. And you can imagine the trauma that's going through me as I'm in the birthing room, as a 20 something with women giving birth, and all of this stuff is flooding over me. That's when I realized I got to deal with this because it is messed with my head in a way that I never wanted to deal with.
I was just going to say, I can relate to all of those. Kids are mean. I didn't even, being adopted by white family, I didn't even know it till I went to school. So I can relate to you, doctor. At age 5, the kids are like, why is your mom white? And I didn't realize she was white. That's how real racism really is. I did not realize I had that love. Moving a little bit forward, the anger. Once I did find out that I was adopted and kind of knew everything that was going on, oh, I was angry, angry, angry at everybody, but not really. I was a fun kid, had a lot of good times, but that something was missing, and you couldn't touch it, find it. You didn't even know where it really was. I remember at age 21, I was in college, and my best friend, still today, her sister was like, "You were chosen." And it felt good to hear that, but it still was something missing. I went through life. I was like, I found out Oprah had a child. I was like, oh, that's my mother. I had these fantasies, just making up stuff. I think I had one of the Chicago Bears as my father. I just was these fantasies of having a mother and what she was like. She was perfect. She was rich. She was all these different things. I could just make up what I wanted. And then later, I think in my late 20s, I decided to do a search. And that brought up just a whole bunch. Why didn't she search? The anger came back like, oh, you're not looking for me. Why should I look for you? But I'm the one that wants to know. There was a whole bunch of things kind of just going on. And I don't know if anyone can relate to that. Just, I think, Doctor, you said it. You wanted to know, how did this happen? So just really, I don't know, being kind of overly focused on how it all happened. I think that was a kind of an unhealthy piece, but yet turned into healthy. Learning more about it, researching it, finding out there are others that have kind of gone through it, that did bring some peace, I think, for me. But it still didn't fill that void. I'll have to say that. There's nothing in this world that could fill that void.
Yep. Absolutely. And thank you guys for keep going and then go, Shauna. I'm just reading some of the comments. If I go out, y'all, don't worry about me going out because their story is so powerful. People still talking. They like, yes, wow. So thank you guys for continuing on. I was on a meeting for like 3 hours with no internet issues and get on here and it keeps kicking me out. All right, Shauna, you have the floor. Thank you all.
Yeah, that's because we got all this power going on. That's what that is. We're going to get this message out because we're going to help some people heal tonight. What I was just thinking, again, just listening to everything everybody's saying. So one, I was the kind of person who was like, well, you know what? I guess I'm gonna have to roll up my sleeves and get it done. So whatever I could read, whatever I could study, a lot of what they're saying, like we do that as human beings. But I thought of a statement. I used to hate, and I still do. I'm working on myself, but I used to hate when people would say, and I would imagine a lot of you can relate to this, and they would say, other people would say, of course, who don't live this life that we're talking about, they would say things to the extent of, you should be over it by now. Says who? What? Like, that is the craziest thing to say to someone. And it's hurtful. It's hurtful. People don't realize how much damage control comes with those one couple of words. So I would caution anybody out there, like, that's not the way to approach it and help somebody heal. It's just not. And then another thing I would say is, if you do not go get help and you really don't break that thing down and deal with it, it will eventually deal with you. Because I was a person, I went after every promotion, everything to try. I didn't even realize that that's what I was really doing, was trying to fit. I didn't. And I would do it and I would accomplish. And then I would be like, but I still feel the same. So now I was never dealing with it. So I was covering up, like the doctor was saying, right? I was doing that. Went to therapy, started like a year ago. And what triggered for me everything, and it came crashing and it down on me, and it was not pretty. My husband and I adopted my niece and my nephew 5 years ago. And when I tell you, I can't explain it, but all hell broke loose inside of me because I was truly reliving now their experience of not having their mother, and it hit me like, oh my, they were almost the ages at the time when we got them that we were when we lost our mother. So it triggered a lot of stuff for me. And I realized a lot of this stuff, I've just been piling it up and I never dealt with it. And let's just tell the truth about that. In the Black and brown communities, especially, going to get help was not normal. So I can remember literally, we lived in Anchorage, Alaska at the time when my mom died. My mom died on the way moving back to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So she died in Canada in a moving truck. We were in school, in my new school, from Alaska to Milwaukee within like 2 weeks, like nothing had happened. Never saw a therapist, never got any help. Just get up, go to school, and you got to keep going. That's what we were told, and that's what we did. And no knock at any of them. They did what we did at the time.
And I can agree with that. The comments, did it make you stronger? We didn't want to be stronger. I wanted my mother.
Yeah.
Those kind of comments, don't do it. It's not helpful, and being strong isn't always the answer. We were kids, we were babies, we were, grieving, and we got through it, as Shauna said. Yeah, we had to. We had no choice. But if we were to talk to, and you probably had a chance to talk to your nieces and nephew of a different way that this could be handled. What do they need right now? What could be comforting? Therapy. You don't talk about it. You're embarrassed. You're lonely. You're feeling like you got this big no mom sign all over you, and everybody knows it. So those are some things that just stick with you for years.
I think the therapy thing too is also a generational thing. So I'm a Gen X, and I think a lot of times we didn't, like, I hear my kids talking about it all the time, and they're like, therapy this, therapy that. It just wasn't a thing. It wasn't a thing necessarily for us, and in that generation at least. And to me, I think what I most experienced, I would say the biggest thing I experienced was the missing out. Because again, my mom she is, and she's still alive to this day. So she's alive. But what I did is I missed out on that motherly figure. And so I think it all came to a head for me. I think we're all in the same boat, like in our 20s, where you start to realize what you missed out on. I remember going to for Mother's Days, just that sense of just dread and discomfort and sadness, and everybody else is celebrating their moms. And, I'm of course trying to celebrate my grandma, and of course still showing my mom the proper respect she deserves as a woman who gave me life. But just having that just discomfort and finally coming to a place, admittedly talking to my best friend and telling him, and I have a hard time even saying the words now, but, I hate my mom, and just, saying those words and just realizing where I was at that point, because of the missing out, because of her not being present, because of me having to be the adult in the relationship many times. It was like, I want to be a kid. I want to be a child. I want to be able to enjoy, I don't want to have to come to your home and have to be the most logical thinking person at 13 or 14 years old. And so I'm with you guys with that, as far as the anger just finally culminating in my 20s and getting to that place. So I can definitely relate to that.
Right. And thank you guys for sharing it and being transparent when you say, hey, up until a certain point, I was still angry, right? I was still yearning. I still wanted that mother figure. And Shauna, I see the pictures and know that you took in your niece and nephew, but how that was a trigger point for you, right? Dealing with things that happen with you and being young and things that's going on. And I think about how many times in life when something happens and we can't really put our finger on it, but it was a trigger for something from our childhood, whether it be trauma or things we went through without a parent, and not even knowing, it puts us into this mode where it hits us and we're emotionally and mentally trying to figure out what is it, right? what just happened? Why do I feel different? Why am I reacting different like this? And this is when I'll ask Marika, from your professional level, um, what is something that you can tell us that can either help us deal with it or cope with it, or when you can say, hey, that was one of those triggering emotions where possibly now is the time that you need to talk to someone.
Well, I would like to just say thank you to everyone who has shared thus far. Your transparency and authenticity is invaluable. Like, I really appreciate that. My lived experience is a lot different, so I'm not going to really speak to that. I'll just speak from a clinical perspective. So I would say the point in time that someone should definitely go and seek professional help is when it starts to affect their day-to-day living, and they're not able to properly function throughout life. That's at the point where it's kind of like you're face to face with that particular traumatic experience, and now it's like Shauna was saying, either you're going to deal with it or it's going to deal with you. And so you definitely don't want to get to the point where it deals with you, because it's going to spiral out and spill over into a lot of different areas of your life, and then it comes to a point of, you're not able to control what's going on anymore. So that's what I would definitely share. I know Mike kind of spoke to having a parent that is around but not actually present. And I've definitely have had a lot of both teenage and adult clients who have been in that position where they found themselves being more like that parent for their parent, and that struggle that they have experienced and the different stressors and the triggers that come about. And they even sometimes noticed that if they did not deal with it, that it showed up in their relationships. So then they were marrying or dating their mom or their dad who wasn't
Ooh.
present or what have you. So this can definitely show up in a lot of different areas of life if it's not properly addressed.
Thank you for that. And then I think we may have some of the commercials playing. I'm gonna go to one while I'm revamping. I've moved from the laptop to the phone because we gonna make sure that y'all are heard. I know it was so many people. Even when I posted the flyer, they didn't come out personally like on Facebook and said, and I get it because this is very deep. But there were some people that either messaged me. This one lady said, "My daughter really needs to hear what's going on. I couldn't be there from my daughter, and I know it affected her, and now she's a mother. I would love for her to listen to some of the people on there because I had to take onus from what I did to my daughter." Right? And as a parent, sometimes we don't even think about the trauma and effects that we can put on our own children, even if we were there. Maybe they were there, like Mike said, but you wasn't there consistently, and I had to be the adult where you was a parent. So we'll get more into that, hopefully, if this plays, but I'm going to try to go to the commercial or the music video. I'm just going to stop it there because this was actually okay. This was actually a young lady who was writing this letter to her mom. And if you hear the letter, she does come off very angry. And when she says, "You're not my mom," I hear it in her voice. She just wants the love of a mom, right? And someone may hear her talking about that and they would say, "She seems very angry." Her angry was because she didn't love her mom. Her angry was because I needed my mom, right? And so as I went into it and it was going, and you were the first person to set eyes upon me, but it's not really have I've ever set eyes on you. And I thought that was like, wow, babies all of the time. And sometimes I say, I'm tired of seeing y'all, but listening to something like that, I'm grateful, right? Because even though sometimes they may get on my nerves, I love them because I'm their mom. And so, Mike, when I think about you saying my mother was there, but being the adult, I think about some of the young people that I work with within the schools, and we're always saying, "Hey, you're a reflection of your parent. You're a reflection of your mom." And I remember one young man was acting up, and me and the psychologist was working with him, and we were like, "Hey, you have to put on your best behavior for your mom, like you're a reflection of her. You don't want your mom to think that you're being negative." And the boy was like, "My mom is negative too." And he went into this long scream of things that she has done, and it makes us think that they are looking, they do notice, right? And you set the bar, of how we are and the things that come into our life and how we look at life. And so also as being a mom, I just want us to step into it and once again share as much as you're comfortable with. How did that affect your journey as being a parent? Because a lot of times we talk about the absent father and how the daughter looked at for that place, or dated older man or man that had the same sometimes negative characteristics of her father. People, some people see in that, sometimes you see yourself aligning with that parent. So on the role of parenting, how did it change the way that you parent or the way that you think about parenting? And then how does it change the way that you interact with your child?
I'll step up right to the plate for that one. So it's been interesting. So just to give you an idea of my background. So I'm the mother figure combined of 5 kids that are 29, 28, 22, 17, and 14. 2 of them I gave birth to. 1 I was married into. And then 2, our youngest 2 we adopted. That were my brother's kids who got murdered in 2009. So it's a lot. It's a lot. Honestly, what I did not do the best, and it took me years to realize that too. I was the best mother I could be, and I'm still the best mother I can be. But for years and years and years, I overcompensated my kids for what I did not get. Like I overcompensated in every way you could think of because I didn't want them to miss anything. So we going across town, we going across the country. You're going to be number one this, you going to like all of the stuff that I felt like I needed that woman there for. My kid's not going to miss none of this. So I was that mom. But then I drove them crazy half the time because I was really pushed. And as much as this is going to sound crazy, I've learned from having open conversations like this. In honesty, I did not plan to live long. So I thought let me prepare my children and give them everything that I need, because in the back of my mind, my mother didn't live long, my grandmother didn't live long, my aunt. So I want my kids to be equipped, and I wanted nobody else to raise my children but me. So I did everything I could that way. I know another mistake that I made that as my girls are adults now, they're helping me be a better parent, if you will, because that's a two-way street. And I'm open to that, is they had to help me understand that was my experience. It's not theirs. Yeah. So we hear you, Mom, when you've had the second or third glass or the bottle of wine and the ugliness is showing up and you getting in our butts about what we didn't get. Well, that's not our experience.
Right.
As much as we feel for you and we want to relate, you can't expect us to get it because that we've always had you.
Yes.
So that was a lot for me. And honestly, in my marriage, which I love my husband dearly, but I thought getting with a man who could relate because he lost his mother young too, that was a big mistake in thinking he's going to understand all of this because we all process grief completely different.
Definitely.
So
Yeah.
a lot of times I would show up like expecting him to understand or still wanting to talk. And he's like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
So I really had to understand that nobody is coming to rescue me in my healing and what I'm going through, but me.
Oof.
But me.
Oof.
And
I
that
feel
changed
like I
everything.
felt that.
That changed everything for me, truly.
Yes. And just being honest, right, with your children and letting them see that dark. And Dr. Sandra, as you was talking, her face, she was just like, yes. So I'm just gonna go right to you.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I was like, I was all in my children's business from the second they came out. It's like, you're not going to be looking for me. I'm going to be right there. So I was the soccer mom, the basketball mom, the football mom, driving kids around, all kind of stuff. I wanted to be, and I'm a physician. So my job is 60 hours a week and I'm still trying to be that mom.
Wow.
So that's actually where all of my research now came from because I research burnout because about 3 years in of having kids, I completely burned out. And that's when they were still toddlers. Because I was trying to be super mom and super doc and all these
Yeah.
things at the same time. And so yeah, it had a huge effect. But even now looking back, my parenting is still kind of like Shauna mentioned, it's very proactive. It's like I want to make sure my kids are highly equipped, like above and beyond equipped, because I don't know what's going to happen. And because, I don't have these disillusions that, you get to be with your kids forever. It's not a fairy tale life we live in. Things
Yeah.
happen. I think I'm always going into it with a heightened level of what's possible. And so always looking at what can I do to mitigate that, in case of, so that they're not just left having to deal with these things.
Wow. Deep. I'm gonna go to Mike. It's always good to hear from the male perspective, right?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I would say for me, one of the things that I wanted to do differently was with we have 6 kids, 5 girls, 1 boy. Same parents for all 6. And so one of the things I wanted to see, at least in our family, is to break this generational cycle of abandonment. So my mom left me at 5, but in fairness, her mom and dad put her up for adoption. So she was in essence also abandoned. And I hear the stories because I don't know much about her biological family, just know about her adoptive family for the most part. But as we start to, because of nowadays with 23andMe and all these other different DNA tests you can do, finding out more about her biological family and learning that similar patterns in the family, similar patterns of abandonment, seeing it unfortunately with my brothers as well, kind of that whole cycle of abandonment, of leaving their kids and saying, my wife and I, we're not going to do life how our parents did. We're going to do it different. And we're going to break this cycle. And we've done so. And listen, I'll tell you the temptation early on in my mind, the thoughts that I think, the things that I'm hearing are, they're better off without you, Mike. They're better off without you. They'll be better off if you're not in the picture. And those are the things you hear. Those are the things you hear. And it's like, you have to combat that and say, no, I know. And if you guys have done any of the research, you realize the studies that come with fathers being present in the family and the good things that brings about. Of course, there are circumstances that are different, right? But point being, when the father's in the household, how that impacts the kids. And so knowing that and understanding that and kind of combating these thoughts with truth, well, there you go, right? Now you want to make things completely different. You want to have a different outcome for your kids versus what you were. I mean, the reality is, of course, we're imperfect parents and we make mistakes and we do things we wish we had done differently. Now, I mean, I have a grown daughter who just got married recently, and you look back and you're like, yeah, of course I wish I'd done things a little differently. But at the end of the day, they had their parents present in their lives. They were there we were there present for them this entire time. So That was my desire. The difference that the effect that I wanted to have on our family is being there, being present, being involved in their lives.
Yeah, and when you talked on that mental capacity that tries to tell you they would be better off without you, because of what you went through, and they wouldn't. I think about, like, I deal with people or children within child welfare, and regardless of what any of them children have went through, they still love their parents, come good, bad, or ugly, right? And so I often say, regardless of how the parent was, you can't take away that that was the parent, right? And not saying they all should stay, right? Because safety reasons, but it's something about that love, or, that attachment that you all have talked about still. Like, I still wanted my mom, right? Whether she was around or not around, or I couldn't have, or I was angry at her, I still wanted my mom. And Serena, do you want to chime in on this before we switch to the different subject?
Sure. I can say I was terrified to be a mom. I was like, I'm
Mhm.
not doing that. I'm not doing it. I don't know how. I felt like I wasn't going to be able to do it. And then I had this whole notion that I have to find this man that has a big family and they're gonna be able to just surround. If I do, I gotta be, he's gotta be like this. He's gotta have family, a big family that can just make sure that they get everything they want, because I can't do it. I was like, I'm not doing that. Oh no. So
Wow.
yes, like serious. Not that I don't want mine. It's the greatest gift ever.
No, I
At
get
the
it.
time, I
Yes.
was
You
like,
just
but
never know, right?
and they know this. I was just terrified. I can't be a mom because I don't know what that looks like. Especially, I didn't know what being a Black mother looked like. And I was like, I don't think I should be the one to do that. God blessed me with two daughters. And, it was, and I'm glad it was two daughters, as a woman. And I did have some single parenting time most of the time. But like I said, we started a legacy, and that's something that I can tell them now. We have started a generation. We keep it going. I got a grandbaby, but
Yeah.
it was just the fear. I was like, oh, I don't. What if I can't do it? Am I going to leave them? I don't know where all that was coming from, but it was a big. I had to work on that and healing, and I did get counseling and therapy too, because it was like almost an obsession. Like, I didn't think I could do this. And then I was pregnant. Now I have to do it. What am I going to
Right.
do? And I wanted to. Then I got into what Dr. and Shauna was saying, everything. They had everything. And that, it can be good and bad. You know, I think this whole generation, all of us, we spoiled these kids.
Yes. Right. We want them to have
Just
more.
overindulged and
Yeah.
immersed. And I know Shauna has raising our daughters, and we have, mother-daughter behavior. I tag her, I tag Marika, I'll start tagging you as well. But just to see, that's such a dynamic. The mother-daughter relationship is something that is you can't even explain it. It's unimaginable. It's a love, and it's just, it has its ups and downs, goods and bads, but if you can kind of work through it, it can be just so amazing. And I just like to honor when I see people doing it and doing it well and giving it their best. Like Shauna said, we didn't know, there's no handbook on parenting. Lord, and these girls are rough. They want it all, and we want them to have it all. So we put that pressure on ourselves. But that's just something how we are. Something was missing, and we wanted them to have it all, and they deserve it. So I
Right.
think there's a good and a bad to that. We had to find that balance,
Yes. Right. Like,
that
let me
healthy
give them this
balance.
and do
Tough,
that.
tough love at times, which wasn't
Yes.
easy. We didn't want to say no, because we maybe didn't have that opportunity. We would have loved to hear no, but we didn't get that chance. So mothering has been a journey, and I'm still learning, and I'm still, wanting to do my best. I apologize. I can, if for some of the things I didn't do right, but I'm like, hey, you haven't done it yet, so just remember that. So yeah,
Right.
but
As my son come up and I'm making faces, yelling with the phone muted, like, I want to be. But I think about what Shauna said when she said, "Hey, I wanted to marry or be with someone because I felt like they would understand where I was coming from." And their journey isn't necessarily your journey, right? And so it's like your healing journey. And what do you have to do? And someone come in and stated, learning to forgive, learning to heal, also knowing what I wanted to do differently with my children, but remembering of not knowing my mother's own trauma. And I think, Mike, you alluded to that. Like before, I didn't know what was going on with her. But then when I found out my mom was put up for adoption, it became a cycle, right? And we talk about generational curses, right? And how we breaking them. But we need to talk about like the generational legacies, the generational wealth. And wealth is more than just money, right? The generational blessings, right? And so, Dr. Sandra, when you said, "Hey, I work 60 hours a week, but I was still that super soccer mom and, doing all this because I wanted my babies to know how much I care, right? What I want to do." And I wonder as parents sometimes, because of what we didn't have or what we want to have, we do a lot more for our children. And not saying they don't deserve it, like Serena saying, but saying, sometimes we went into overdrive because we wanted to make sure, like, oh, I'm going to let them know that I love them, and not understanding sometimes the time was better than anything else that we can give, right? And so, Shauna, I want to go back to you because you touched a little bit on your relationship, and I know I asked a question about how did it make you think different as a mom, right? But for those that are married or was married or in any type of relationships, how did it affect your relationship differently? Or did it affect it differently? Or you didn't think about that absence of a mom when thinking about who would you marry or who would you date?
I didn't know who I would marry, but when I found him, I'm like, he's it. Because he gets it. And that was a bad assumption on my part to make. So he had to tell, like, even, I mean, literally, we've been together 25 years now. So over all of these years, like the conversation still comes up in several ways because, again, everybody deals with things differently and communication styles are differently. So I had to learn to respect like how he grieves and processes things. Like he's the person, like, Mother's Day, up until honestly a couple of years ago, I didn't get out the bed on Mother's Day. I really didn't. I did not, as much as I wanted to celebrate being a mother, it laid me down, literally. So for him, he's like, or like if his mother's birthday just passed, actually. So me being me, I'm like, okay, well, this is what I would want somebody to do. My mind program just says, check on him, text him, call him. Is he okay? And he's like, I'm cool. Like, I'm good. Like, so just, I think learning to understand what everybody needs and communicating, because I didn't know till recently how to do that more effectively, to communicate what I need instead of just assuming everybody knows. So that helped, that blessed us. That blessed us tremendously. And for him to say, okay, to be able to talk it out and not feel bad. And, I honestly, I covered up a lot of stuff for my mother still. Like I honestly felt like my grandmother just turned 87 years old, for example, really quick. I felt like this kind of conversation we have out of respect for my grandmother, I can't have this conversation in public till my grandmama dies. But then I learned not having this conversation and holding on to all of this stuff, it's killing me. It's hurting my marriage. It's hurting my kids. It's hurting my family and all of the stuff I want to do in the world. So no, I'm not waiting anymore.
Wow, that communication and that stepping up so people can heal. Anyone else want to talk about in reference of relationships?
I just wanted to say that forgiveness was everything. First, forgiving yourself for being angry, for having those feelings like you hate your mom or whatever the case or whatever it is. You don't understand what's going on. You're still grieving. But people would say to me, like, how can you forgive her? And I'm like, well, I forgave her way before I even found her. And then, like Mike was saying, her story, and Ayana helped me through all of this. She she knows about that family dynamic. You don't know what someone else has gone through. And we get and it's okay to self-love and to have those self moments, but you have to be bigger than that. There's the loss. It was like a loss for me because I never had it. So I'm like, okay, but something missing, but I don't even know what it really is. So being able to have that forgiveness first and to grow, then I was able to even do the search. I couldn't even, I dipped and dabbed a little bit. I said, okay, exactly to 18, I'm going to do it. Then I didn't do it. Then bad relationships and things they were promising. Oh, I'm going to help you find her. It was all something for me. Once I realized it was all about me and what I needed. And if I wanted to do it, I could. If I didn't want to do it, I didn't have to. But just really taking that time, processing it. It's whatever you need. So don't let anybody rush you. Don't let your grieving process. Don't let anybody rush you saying, I think we started this conversation with getting over it. You don't get over it. You learn how to get through it. You learn how to function with it better and better as you heal yourself. So I think that, and that forgiveness piece, we can forgive our mothers for the things, and we can still be parents, and we can still have happiness, and we can still grieve whenever we get ready. If that's what we need to do, take that day. You can have those self-care days and do whatever it is you need to get through it, because it's whatever you need. People, nobody can tell you what it is that you need. So if there's someone out there now, they're feeling lost, they're feeling alone, all of that is okay. But just don't get fester in it and get into that depression and get into, even the anger. It'll show up somewhere. You'll have high blood pressure. You'll start, your health can really be affected. So learn, find a way to either forgive, start your own healing process, and start really loving yourself, because you're important too.
Thank you. And I want us to transition to that healing because I want to be respectful of time. But Serena, earlier you said it, and I kind of know about your story when you said, hey, I didn't even know, that my mom was white, like your foster mom. You're just a young kid. And it just shows you the pureness of a child, right? I remember you talking about how when you went to college, you wanted a black roommate because you didn't know how to care for your hair, right? They did the best they can, but you was washing it every day. Anybody know us? We don't wash our hair every day like that, but trying to find a sense of who you are, and whose you are. And I always thought, I always think about your story when I think about that, when you say, I never even knew she was white, because that was
Sure.
the love you had for her. You saw her as your mom, not as, this white lady that adopted you, right? And she treated you as such, right? And so Serena kicked it off when and some of y'all talked about it, that healing journey, right? So in not saying, and I'm glad you said it, there's no time frame on grieving. There's no time frame on healing. No one can tell you, oh, that was 20 something years ago, you should be over that. You don't have to. But what are some of the ways or strategies or tips that you guys have that help you along this healing journey as you're still healing as well too? And in no specific order.
Mike, you want to go?
Yeah, sure. So I think we talked about this a little bit before, just this idea of empathy and understanding her story. I think for me, as a man of faith, a man who follows Jesus, I'm so quick to just forgive other people or accept them in with no problem. And people coming into the church that I have no idea who they are and their stories, but I'm in essence denying that to a woman who made the same mistakes, right? And then understanding where she came from, and knowing the abandonment issues, and then being adopted by family member that was abusive towards her, and hearing all those different things. How can I really be this man of faith, this person who's willing to forgive and love others, and not love this person? It talks about how many times to forgive a person. Peter asked Jesus, how many times should I forgive my brother? And he told him pretty much always, if they ask for it. And I remember having a conversation with my mom on the phone and having that discussion. And I said, Mom, I forgive you. And she's like, you mean it? And I'm like, yes, I forgive you.
Wow.
Now, of course, you guys know this. Forgiveness is a decision, not a feeling.
Yeah. And it's more for you than it is for them at times. Yeah.
It's a decision. So you have to continue to make that decision for the rest of your life. So that's for someone else as well, because the truth is, you may say you forgive them and then you don't feel forgiveness, because the next day you're angry about it all over again. You have to go back to the decision you made and live that over and over and over again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. I can relate to all of that. And for some of us who don't have a mother here to, have that conversation with, I go to the word often. Therapy, I cannot stress that enough to anybody. It's been one of my greatest blessings. There is a book, although it's female focused, I think anyone who has dealt with any sort of abandonment should look at. It's a book that I've referenced to, and I honestly should read it again, but it's by Hope Edelman, and it's called The Motherless Daughter. And oh my God, that book is by far, I read that book 20 something years ago, and it's still my number one book for dealing with things of this nature, because it doesn't miss anything. It really doesn't miss anything. So that's a good resource. And I also, today, I look at, one thing I look at differently to help me through all of this kind of stuff is I don't look at I try my best to not look at what I lost. I look at what I gained.
Yeah.
So because of that experience, I'm a great woman. I'm a great mother. I'm a great person out in the community. I'm this, and I'm that, because of all of those things I went through. So as far as, instead of crying on Christmas, because my mother loved Christmas, for example. And if you know me, I love me some Christmas.
Yeah.
So what I looked at, I kind of play it up like, kind of like playing house. Like, if me and my mom were decorating today, we would do something like this and have fun with it. I create, instead of saying, okay, I don't recall any of these traditions or remember these things we did with my mom, but I could get the opportunity today to create those with my family and create our own traditions. So I hope that helps and encourages somebody.
Absolutely. Thank you. Serena, Dr. Sandra?
Yeah, I would recommend, I think part of my journey for myself, there was two things that really helped quite a bit. The first one was not being ashamed of what I was feeling. I think you have to have some grace for yourself. I think oftentimes you can forgive, but then you still have, as Mike mentioned, you kind of go back and forth. I forgive, but I'm still kind of touchy, on certain topics. And to just have some grace for yourself and forgive yourself for how you're processing through your grief. I think sometimes because I had to come to a realization, I wasn't just mad at God, I was mad at her. And like she had a say so in it. And I think you have to, and then that can bring on some feelings of condemnation and guilt and all this stuff. And you can't heal if you keep all of that stuff inside. So the second part for me that was really helpful was actually understanding that I needed to be able to share the story. It's the reason why I accept opportunities like this, even though this will always be a sore topic for me. It will always hurt. I'm a physician. I always look at how wounds heal. And this is a wound like any other wound. It's just an emotional or spiritual or mental, you call it whatever you want to. It's a wound that we're all dealing with. That's why there's some healing that's needed. Some wounds heal with scars, where if someone has a scar, I can poke on it and they don't feel anything. Some wounds heal, but they're still tender. And so this is a wound that's always going to have a tenderness to it. And so when Mother's Day rolls around or something of that nature, there's still that tenderness. And I think I have to, in my healing journey, understand that even though I'm moving through a process of healing, that I've got to be okay that that's a wound that may never get to a place where I don't react to some way to it.
Absolutely. Serena?
Yeah, I could agree with everything. One other thing that I was going to say is just, your feelings are so valid. Some days you might be angry, some days you might be sad, but just go with that. It's a process. It's not like one day you're healed. You're going to go through this journey. There's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days, and acceptance, and just really just whatever it is that day or that moment, just really feel that moment. And it's okay to have those moments. It's okay to continue to grieve and continue to heal. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take some time. I love that. I do the same thing with different traditions. We're starting our own traditions and adding on to them as we grow as a family. I have a big family now where it's like, I have these godmothers and I have these TTs and I can just love on them and they love on me. And it's not replacing by any means, but it is okay to have people that love you in that way. We can only call one person our mother of birth, but we can have a lot of love surrounding us. And I think, just surrounding us like we did with our kids. I was like a community mom. All
Yeah.
the kids would come over, they're coming over to the house. I'm running here, running there, we're doing stuff. So I think that just helped me too, just being able to be the best mom and best choosing to be a role model, choosing to be, we can do it. You can still do it. If people look and they look at your story like, oh my God, how did
Yeah.
you do that? Well, we did it. We can
Yeah.
say that with proud. And we're still here. We're standing tall and we matter. Our story really matters and it can help somebody because I know I felt alone, like I was the only one. So I know there's people out here right now that are the same. They just don't know what to do. And we're here. All of us, our stories aren't the same, but they're similar, and somebody is going through something that hopefully we can help them with. They can reach out, ask. Don't be afraid. You don't have to go through things alone. I think that was part of ours. We were trying to be so tough and strong,
Uh-huh.
We don't have to. Hey, break it down. You could cry a few tears. Now I'm like that. I'll cry. It's okay. I don't think I cried much as a kid, holding all those things in, showing up as anger. We don't want that. You don't have to do that. It's okay to really trust your feelings and let them out. And that's a part of your healing process.
Absolutely. And thank you all. And Jeff, also, because a lot of times people don't want to come out in the open and talk about this, but they may have resonated with something that you said tonight and want to speak with you further or get in touch with your organization. What's a way, if you can speak it, and then for those that are on the Facebook, if you can drop it, name some ways, whether it is through Facebook or email, because we live, if it's a business phone number, right? I always want to put that into perspective. How can someone get in touch with you? And we'll go with Serena first. I'll go backwards.
Okay. mahoganycares.org is our website, and there's our phone numbers on there, email, all of those different ways. You can connect with me on Facebook, LinkedIn. My name's not that common, so just Serena, and it's Mahogany Martin. On Facebook, Instagram, any of those ways. Just reach out if you have any questions, or our organization. We do events, we do awareness. We like to have these types of conversations as well. Our mother-daughter, that's something. If we catch you doing some mother-daughter things, we will tag you, and we
Yes,
honor you for that.
absolutely. Mike.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, there's a lot of Mike Rodriguez's out there. So on Facebook, it's such a very common name. But I'm obviously on Facebook through Messenger. And then I have my emails, mike@leadersequipleaders.com. More than happy to take emails there. And of course, all the different social media means through TikTok. Usually I go by Rod Mike G. That if you want to reach out to me there as well. I did post the information regarding this on TikTok as well. So hopefully, those are several different ways to get hold of me, but usually the best way is email mike@leadersequipleaders.com.
Thank you. Dr. Sandra.
Probably best way to contact me would be either on social media. It's just the drdaltonsmith.com on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. My website is ichoosemybestlife.com based off of Deuteronomy. I eventually came around to accepting a relationship with Jesus and actually have a book called Come Empty, Pour Out Life's Hurt, Receive God's Healing Love. And that really is that journey of healing that I've been walking and getting that to that place of actually the spiritual healing as well.
Thank you. And because you got a book, and if anybody else got a book, I would like to purchase a few. I'll say two, especially if all of y'all have one. But you can give it to whoever you want to. So either you can invoice me or send it to me, and feel free to give it to somebody. That's my thank you for you coming on as well too. Shauna. What's the way they can get in touch with you? I see you dropping a couple things in the chat.
Yep. So I dropped the my social media handles is Shauna Sus CEO Weatherspoon on all social media channels on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook is the easiest way to get a hold of me through Messenger or in the feed is fine. And then my website's www.rodfoundation.org. Help a sister out. And then www.weatherspoon.com is the next one. I have 2 published international best-selling books. They are based on self-esteem and empowerment and tools for women, and speaking engagements. I want to make sure I throw that out there as well.
Thank you. You as well, your books. I know how to get to them. And so as we wrapping it up, somebody is listening tonight who does not see that light at the end of the tunnel, who either has lost a mom, not in touch with a mom, does not know who a mom is. Could you guys give some encouragement to them?
Everything on my heart for this whole hour I keep hearing in my spirit, and it's saying life by design, not by default. Oof. Life by design, not by default.
Thank you.
And I would just say, just as I mentioned, my website's I Choose My Best Life, and it's based off of Deuteronomy. I set before you blessing and cursings. Choose life so that you and your descendants may live. Because the thing is, regardless of how you entered this world, you were a vision in God's mind, and you did enter into this world. And so there's an opportunity for you to make a choice about what the rest of it looks like. And what the story doesn't end. So you still have a story that's being written. You're a living epistle. And so what I say is write out the story that glorifies what he's placed inside of you. And if you don't have a faith-based system, write out the story that you envision for yourself, and then start walking that out and see what it can look like.
Oh, come on now. Choose life.
I was going to say, live your life intentionally happy. Love yourself first and just begin your healing process. We all have something we're healing from and continue to heal from. So just begin, just start one day at a time, being a little bit better than you were yesterday. And it'll be okay. It will.
Absolutely. Thank you. Each and every day, day by day, Mike.
A lot of times, and this goes back to scripture as well, beauty comes from ashes. Beauty does come from ashes. And a lot of times ashes, we look at that as turmoil, pain, difficulty, but there can actually come beauty from that. And I'm living that with my wife and my 6 kids. The reality is the story, I think you said it, Dr. Sandra, it's not fully written yet. And you still have an opportunity to choose to live out beauty from the ashes that you've experienced. So that's what I would say.
Absolutely. And Marika had to jump off. Truly thank her for jumping on, giving that perspective from a therapist, mental health. Also, I want to say to everybody that's listening tonight, it was named the missing chapter, right? Because we think about the absence of a mom, but so many times there's so many other people that comes into your life, and they can never take the place of your mom, but they can be there to help you along the journey. I truly thank each and every one of you for coming on and bearing your soul, because this isn't a light topic, right? I knew that it would be heavy, but I also knew that somebody listening tonight, even if they did not leave a comment, they know that there is hope out there, and we are believing through hope becomes healing, right? I'm a faith giant. No disrespect to anybody who believe in anything else, but by our faith we were made whole. And so I'm hoping for anyone that was looking for something or figuring that there's no one else out there with my story. Each person that came on here had a different experience with not having the presence here of their mom. Please reach out to them. If you resonated with anybody, we want you to know that you are never, never, never alone. And in some things, therapy is the right track to go. I talk about it a lot of times, but that is a decision that you need to make for yourself while you're on your healing journey. We send you love. Love, 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 and knowing that we absolutely love you. And even if we haven't met you, that's just who we are We love you and we wish the very, very, very best for you. But I often say, I love you, but I know that God loves you best. You were sent here for a purpose, and believe that your life still has purpose. Live in purpose, on purpose, is what I always say. Thank you all for being the very best of Taylor Talks and joining us here tonight. I really believe there is more to come from this subject, even though this was the beginning. This is not the end. Have a great night. Love on somebody. We're still in the middle of a pandemic, but I often say there's somebody that still needs somebody to talk to. So if you have an elder or loved one, just send them a shout out and make sure that we're still being in public and with people and not isolation, because that's also something that happens with our mental capacity. Have a great night. Hopefully the sun shines, and be great and be great. Be great. Make it a great day. Good night, all.